Today in this particular session, we are proceeding with the previous discussion, that is respiration will be the continuing topic today. Here in this particular session, we are going to understand the one of the life process, that is respiration. So, before doing that, we would like to go through the topics what we have already dealt in previously. So, in the previous session, we were looking into the main topic, that was nutrition. Okay. So, this is what the flowchart we used in the previous session, and we understood that nutrition is of two different types, mainly the autotrophic nutrition and the heterotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition is further divided into photoautotrophic nutrition and chemoautotrophic nutrition. So, we had a detailed understanding of this photoautotrophic nutrition where photosynthesis is involved, and in chemoautotrophic nutrition we saw that it was the process of chemosynthesis. So, using the chemicals, the organisms are synthesizing their own food. That is what the process we learned in the chemoautotrophic nutrition. Followed by, we looked into the process of nutrition as a whole. What is nutrition? Where we understood that it is the mode how an organism takes in the food, how it uses that food to generate energy, and how it is utilizing that generated energy. So, if you observe here, we try to understand the same thing: ingestion method, generation of energy, utilization of energy. That is what we have seen. Next, we observed the labeled structure of the chloroplast, which is being the one of the main organelle which is responsible for the process of photosynthesis, where we saw it was having two different light trapping pigments, those pigments which trap light and to convert the light energy into chemical energy. Steps involved in the photosynthesis process. So, we looked at different steps, we understood the whole process which we have been doing since quite a long time, but here in this particular session previously we learned that the photosynthesis process occurs in stepwise. So, factors affecting photosynthesis process, this was also dealt in the previous session. We understood which are the factors which are limiting the rate of photosynthesis and the factors which are accelerating the rate of photosynthesis. So, this was done in the previous session. Now, we will be proceeding further with the today's topic. So, it starts with the word energy. So, as you can see here, it is clearly mentioned. We are to understand about the energy and need of energy. Why do we need it? And we will understand breathing as one of the important process, but quite differently. We are going to understand breathing as a physical process. So, what is that physical process occurring here? We will explore the respiratory system. That means, using a structure, we will observe its labels, and we will also observe the route of air through the respiratory system. Okay, and we will see the mechanism of breathing, how breathing is occurring, what is the mechanism behind it. So, physical process. So, we need to understand it, what are the components involved in it and how physically it is occurring. So, we will also understand respiration as most vital process and the types of respiration, followed by we will compare the striking features of breathing and respiration. So, these are the details which we have planned for you in this particular session. So, these are our learning objectives, followed by we will see that energy. So, energy is one such thing which we all need. Many of the organisms need energy. Okay. Now, we have to do our work. So, you know better why do we need energy, isn't it? So, you can drop in the chat boxes. So, why do we need energy? So, there are so many answers given by you in the previous class, and even now I see many children are giving the answer. So, we need energy to perform our daily routines. Okay. So, there are so many activities to be done by our body and ourselves. Okay. Whatever may be the cause, if it has to be done, we need energy to do it. Now, can you tell me how do we get energy, source of energy? Okay. So, when we think about source of energy, I see many of you dropping here. So, we get to have energy from various reasons, and one source what you are saying is primarily the food. Okay, that's correct. Fine, we can accept it to some extent. So, now I can see you are dropping much more complex answers. We do get energy from food, that's what we said earlier. You are saying now even, okay, but based on the previous discussion, I see many children are dropping the relevant answers saying that we would like to combine glucose. So, I see a thing in the chat box, a glucose plus oxygen gives rise to energy. Now, if this is the case, so you will understand this a glucose plus oxygen combines together to give us energy. Okay, fine. So, do you remember based on the previous session, can you tell me what is this reaction is signifying here? Correctly said. So, I see here you are dropping in the answer saying that this particular thing what you see on the screen is actually respiration. Okay. So, that is quite simple to understand. So, this is actually the respiration process. Now, we are here to understand the very same process of respiration in much more detailed manner. Okay. So, now we will see the same thing how it happens before doing that. So, we need to understand respiration. So, quite complex and there are chemicals involved in that. Now, here you see there is a word mentioned on the screen, that is breathing. So, children, can you tell me what is breathing according to you? What you learn about breathing, saying that it is a breathing. Okay. So, okay, I am seeing children dropping the responses, taking in oxygen, giving out carbon dioxide is breathing. Okay, fine. So, you say that oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is taken out. So, oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is taken out is what is breathing. No doubt, you are right about it. Okay. So, do we have any name for that specifically? Can you think of it? Taking in oxygen, does it have a name? Okay, yeah, correct. So, it is quite simple again. So, instead of using the same color, we will understand now. So, this is basically inhalation. This one is exhalation. So, this is a process. So, about this process we are going to understand now. I will wipe this out and we will move forward and understand better. So, looking here, it is certainly not respiration. They are quite different, okay. Yet, when we are in the discussion of respiration, you might find some of the overlapping concepts we might be discussing. That means, you might find some of the things involved in breathing would also come back in respiration. We will understand that later. Now, you see the second statement, it is one of the steps carried out under the process of respiration. So, this gives us a good clarity, right. So, usually what happens when we think of respiration, we often say that respiration is a process of taking in oxygen, giving out carbon dioxide, that is what we say. But before that, this particular slide, we were learning that respiration is one such process which gives us an energy. Not only before this slide, we learned the same thing even when we were doing the previous topic, right. So, here if you see carefully, breathing is one of the steps carried out under the process of respiration. So, respiration includes breathing. So, respiration is a bigger process inside which we get to have the breathing process. So, let us see further. So, breathing is more a physical process. So, breathing process occurs physically. So, we will understand where you will only take and release air. Do we take and release air or something else to be specified here? So, as it is given here and at the same time I see children dropping in the responses, it is correct. As you drop in, it is the oxygen to be taken in and carbon dioxide is to be given out. That is what happens in the breathing process. That ends there, that is all. Taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide is what is all about. Now, if you see, we need to look at the structure which actually gives, the final gets the thing done. That is, the breathing process is done because of this particular structure. So, let us have a look at it. So, here if you observe carefully, this is our respiratory system. So, this is our respiratory system. So, here it is quite simple to understand. We have trachea. All these days you might have surely learnt about this trachea, but you might have used some other name saying that windpipe. In the lower classes, we learnt it as windpipe. The very same windpipe is trachea. So, you see around the trachea there are some ring like arrangements, isn't it? Now, we are interested there. Can you tell me what are those ring like structures arranged over there? Drop in the chat box, children. Come on, everyone. Okay. So, these ring like structures, some of you are dropping in the responses. They are basically, okay, they are made up of cartilage. So, they are cartilaginous rings. So, why they are cartilage? They are composed of cartilage. Why not bone or something? If it is bone, it will be more safe, right? Our windpipe. But why not cartilage? So, that is the thing here. You have to understand one thing. So, trachea and this is a respiratory system we are dealing with. So, certainly it is to deal with air. Okay. When you think air is the one present in this, now you have to understand one thing very simply. Air is composed of several gases. Now, first and foremost thing, when you think of gas, pressure is one important factor which is involved here. Agreed? Any confusion? So, whenever you say air is taken in, air contains gases, and whenever you see a gas, so that is mainly implying towards pressure. So, when it is implying towards pressure, if the tube is giving out of air and if the pressure is gone off, certainly this trachea, our trachea would end up squeezing suddenly. When it squeezes suddenly, then that is a very big problem. We will be suffocating to death. To avoid that thing, we have these cartilaginous rings and they are actually protecting us by not squeezing up the trachea. That is the reason why we have cartilaginous rings, and it deals quite well with the gases which have sufficient pressure acting on the system. So, pressure is acting on whole of the system. So, that is why we need it. Following which we have this particular structure, that is bronchi is divided into two parts, okay, like this. Sorry, trachea is divided into two parts. That is known as bronchi, okay. That is singular is bronchi. If it is plural, we call it as it's bronchus. Bronchus is singular, okay, and bronchi is plural, okay. Now, you see that is the arrangement we have. So, once it is done that way, there further accounts for very small branching like this. Okay. Just a moment. Okay. So there are small branches over here, right? So that leads to very small branching. So those branches are known as bronchioles. Okay. Now these bronchioles, they have, you know, sac like arrangement or the balloon like arrangement at the end of them. Each of them are having a balloon like structures. These balloon like structures are known as alveoli. Okay. They are very, very small and they are covered by a very thin layer under which blood vessels are present. Mainly there we will see the presence of, I will show you, I will write on the screen here. Okay. So if you see here, there we will see mainly it is composed of blood capillaries. So alveoli is surrounded by a thin membrane under which there lies the capillaries, the blood capillaries, and those blood capillaries, they help them to have the sufficient respiratory gases, that is exchange of respiratory gases occurs at the alveoli. So you see lungs, whenever in the childhood days, that is when we were young in the lower classes, we used to learn that there are two lungs we have. If you observe here, this was the internal part what you have observed. Now here the other side, if you would like to observe, you will see that there is some difference what we have learned and what is shown here, isn't it? So what I am trying to draw is actually the structure of lung is not like what we think, it is actually different. So it shows that here it is not like one whole structure as a single mass giving us the lung, it is actually having lobed structure. There are different lobes I have drawn. So whole lung is composed of several lobes like this. So this is what is lobes. So lungs is composed of lobes. This is a big picture of our respiratory system. Now we will understand what happens here, starting with this particular slide. So in this slide, as I have already told you, inhalation is happening, exhalation is happening. You too have mentioned it earlier than me. Here if you observe carefully, you know, when the oxygen is going inside the body, these blue dots are resembling alveoli with oxygen, and you see these arrow marks, it represents, these arrow marks represents that they are expanding. So here the lungs are expanding, following which there is one particular structure over here. Can you see that it is also expanding both the sides? Can anyone among you, can you give a name to it, or do you know what is it called as? Okay, so it's quite simple to understand. It is basically known as a name which you might be familiar with. Okay, so that is nothing but, I am writing it here, it is commonly known as diaphragm. This structure is diaphragm. Understood? So that is a structure known as diaphragm, which is also a muscle. It is actually present to separate the thoracic cavity. So thoracic cavity is this and the abdomen, that is one feature. Apart from that, its main function is happening when breathing is occurring. So, this process what you are looking here where oxygen is taken in is inhalation, it is inhalation. And this process what you are looking here where carbon dioxide is given out, at the same time you see our lungs earlier which were expanding, okay, they were expanded earlier, okay. Now what happens here, they are, I am sorry, they are relaxed, they are quite relaxed here, you can see it clearly, okay. So, when they are relaxed you see the structure of the diaphragm here, it is quite visible clearly. Look at the shape of the diaphragm, it has changed now, it has taken a curve shape like this. Earlier if you see it was not like that, observe this particular image, this is flat because the chest was expanding, lungs were taking in a lot of oxygen, but here the case is not like that. If you see here, they have given out a whole lot of carbon dioxide and their shape is also changed. So, this is what happens during exhalation. So, this is the process of exhalation. So, this is a mechanism where one inhalation plus one exhalation gives out one breath, okay. So, this is what is inhalation, exhalation and breathing as a whole. That is the mechanism, that was the mechanism of breathing. Now, you see I want to tell you something more in the very same mechanism part. Observe these things. First is nostrils, okay, the two openings what we have, okay, whenever air passes like this, and then the pharynx, it is in the throat, followed by trachea, okay, then the bronchus, bronchioles, alveoli, then it passes to different parts of the body. And from the different parts of the body, you see that comes to alveoli and then bronchioles, bronchioles are followed by bronchus, and then you see that it passes to trachea, pharynx and nostrils. Now, this is a sequence of passage what you see. So, those who are following here, I want you to drop in the chat box, there is a question for you. Which of the following flow chart, which of the following route, whether green route or the blue route, which of them belongs to oxygen, which is the air passage of oxygen? Okay, some of you are saying that it is blue route taking care of the movement of oxygen. Some say that it is green route taking care of the movement of oxygen. Some say blue route is taking care of the carbon dioxide movement. Okay, if it is so, let us see now. So, it is the green route what you are seeing here. Okay, I will change the color. So, this green route, it is actually taking care of oxygen, okay. So, it is actually helping to take care of the movement of the oxygen, and when it comes to the blue one, it is actually taking care of the movement of carbon dioxide, correct. So, this is what is carbon dioxide is moving in this manner, that is from all the body parts to ultimately reach into the nostrils, and when we release the gas out of our body, we see that it is coming through our nostrils, and you will also sense that heat is given out, okay, I am writing on here. So, along with carbon dioxide, we see that heat is given out, and then you would also see water vapor is also given out. So, this is the way how it is done. Any questions, any confusion by now? Okay, great. So, this is basically the route where involves there are two openings of our nose are known as nostrils, It goes through, air goes through nostrils, then to the pharynx. In the throat, that is a junction where you see the passage of the air and food is present, followed by trachea, and then from the trachea, that is the windpipe, we get to see a small branching over there, 2 in number, that is what is bronchus, and then you see bronchioles, small branches. Each bronchiole is ended up with having a balloon like structure or very small grape like grapes, a bunch of grapes, that kind of arrangement you see in the alveoli, and then it passes to different parts of the body. This is a sequence. Now, let me tell you one thing, each lung, whenever we discuss, each lung is having over, okay, I am wrong here, I have to change the sign. So, each lung is having more than 300 million alveoli. Which means it accounts for more than 600 million alveoli are present in both the lungs. Got it? That is the discussion. Please note it down, children. Hope you are understanding what I am saying. So, it accounts for 300 million alveoli, each lung. So, both the lungs, more than 300 million alveoli. Let us move forward. Like I mentioned earlier only, inhalation plus 1 inhalation plus 1 exhalation is breathing. So, breathing per minute is known as breathing rate. So, its breathing rate, if you see, it is the breaths taken per minute of time. So, that is the breaths taken per minute of time is breathing rate. Normally, it is 12 to 14 breaths taken per minute. That is the sequence. Alright. Hope you have no confusion. Shall we move forward? Okay. You see here respiration. This process of respiration is quite important. It is a vital process occurring in ourselves. So, when you see this process, okay, it's here. Okay. It is a vital process. You see, wherein firstly it involves taking enough oxygen and giving out of carbon dioxide, no doubt, because earlier when we were doing breathing, we understood that breathing is included in the respiration process. So, the same thing is happening here. So, here the food is broken down, whatever we consume, that has to be broken down by the process of digestion. Ultimately, the glucose which is present there, that combines with oxygen in a biochemical process. So, respiration occurs as a biochemical process that accounts for respiration. Bio refers to living organism, chemicals are involved, it is a process. So, it is biochemical process, right. So, it is of different types. So, you see there are trillions of cells present in multicellular organism usually, like you and me, we have trillions of cells, sometimes millions of cells, some lakhs of cells, and depending upon the type of organism. Here on the screen you see that it is showing us about the cellular respiration, that is the respiration, it is occurring inside a cell is cellular respiration. So, that is what we are here to understand now. We will have a look at it quickly. So, this cellular respiration, okay, it all starts with here. There is a link between, you might be wondering why chloroplast is here and why mitochondria is here. Well, before starting everything, can I tell you one thing? Respiration occurs in here. Got it? So, respiration occurs in this particular organelle. respiration. Now you know about this. So here we see the process of photosynthesis. We have already learnt it in the previous session. Now when it is happening in this, so it starts all from the light energy, that is the sun. It all starts here. So light energy is taken by the organelle here because it contains light trapping pigments. Can you name few light trapping pigments which are present here? Correct. So it is quite simple: chlorophyll and carotenoids. Chlorophyll and carotenoids are the pigment present in the chloroplast. They both help in the process of photosynthesis, and that is what happens. So food is made here automatically. So this is what is required for us now. So this is actually glucose. Now the next step of our energy generation starts here in this particular organelle. It is mitochondrion. Okay, so what happens here? You see that glucose is already present here, okay, and that glucose would combine with which of the one? Oxygen. So glucose combines with oxygen in which organelle? In mitochondrion, and that reaction, that is this reaction, leads to the formation of energy, that is chemical energy, which is known as ATP. Can you guess what is ATP is? Yes, it is very simple. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so that is what is happening. So in the process of respiration, you see water is given out. I told you, right? When we are giving out, we see water is given out, heat is also given out, and we already know that is carbon dioxide is given out. So this is what is happening within each and every cell of our body. Each and every cell of our body is supplied with glucose after the digestion process. When we consume food, the food gets digested in the body, and that supplies glucose to each and every cell. And with the process of breathing, that is a physical process, right? We take in oxygen, and that oxygen reaches each and every cell of our body, and you see this is what is happening in our cells. Because it is occurring inside the cell, so it is cellular respiration. So that is the reason why we call it a cellular respiration. Now we have to understand respiration as a whole. It is of two types. You see, it is quite simply given: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So it is of two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Can you guess what are these two? So this is also simple for you, and some of you are answering it. Aerobic respiration is a respiration where oxygen is involved. Oxygen is taken inside the body. In anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not involved. Got it? So oxygen is not taken inside the body in aerobic respiration. Without taking oxygen, energy is produced in anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is happening like this. Starts with glucose, and you know oxygen, we already discussed it, and that leads to the process. This is what the biochemical process we learnt about. It is respiration. So that is the biochemical process you see, and here you see ultimately the carbon dioxide is given out and water is given out. Okay, you can sense it by putting finger in just in front of your nostrils, two openings of your nose. You can sense that, you can feel the heat, you can feel some gases coming out. At the same time, you can also feel the water vapor. The gas is carbon dioxide, okay, and the water comes out anyway. Along with that, you are sensing heat, isn't it? When you can sense heat, that heat is the energy generated. Got it? So, throughout the system, whichever system you think of, if it is generating heat, it has to lose a little part of that energy. If it is generating energy, it has to lose a little part of that energy. Understood? So, that is how it is happening. So, next process you see anaerobic respiration. What happens here? Any guesses? What happens in anaerobic respiration? It's quite interesting, huh? Okay, it's quite simple again, children. Like I mentioned, anaerobic respiration. Okay, after doing this, I think you will be able to tell me where this occurs in our body. Yeah, you might be wondering, we take in oxygen, but now you are saying that our body undergoes this process. Looks quite irrelevant, isn't it? But we will understand this now. So, in anaerobic process, it's quite clear here. Glucose, whether it is aerobic or anaerobic, glucose is a common point here. So, we need glucose here, and that glucose directly converts itself into ethyl alcohol, and it gives out the carbon dioxide. At the same time, our prime need is generated. That's quite simple to understand. So, what happens here is ethyl alcohol is there. When we do a whole lot of exercise, any physical activity, we will become tired and we will go to such a position where no more movements are done by ourselves, isn't it? Now, when that is happening, now you have to understand that is the result of our physical process, and where you see lactic acid is produced in our body. That is one such process which is occurring in our body. Now, we will be learning here ethyl alcohol is also produced here. Now, this you can link with a process called fermentation performed by the yeast. So, this is one such process where anaerobic respiration without the usage of oxygen, you see nowhere oxygen is used, but still energy is produced, right. So, this is a sequence of understanding. Next, I want to show you this. This, what is this? Hemoglobin. So, this is also an important component what we have to understand about it. By the way, what do you know about this hemoglobin? Okay, what you are saying is it is present in our blood and makes the blood look red. Absolutely right, it makes the blood look red. But why we are doing this in the topic of respiration? What is that doing here? We don't think so. We have to learn about it here while understanding respiration, but we are learning about it. What is that happening here? So, it makes blood look red in the sense this is one good component which looks like this, okay, and the name suggests it is a hemoglobin. Globin is a polypeptide chain. Can anyone tell me, children, what do you mean by this polypeptide chain? Come on, give a guess, good guess. Polypeptide chain. Okay, you are right. This polypeptide chain is nothing but protein. It is a protein. That polypeptide chain is actually the protein. Now, hemoglobin. So, globin you understood it is a protein. What is a heme unit? Heme unit is made up of iron molecule. So, it is also given somewhere. Yeah, you see this is iron. That is the heme unit. One hemoglobin will be having 4 heme units. So, here you see this particular heme unit, I will use some other color for you. So, this one, if you observe carefully, that is not having that yellow color thing on the screen, isn't it? That means it is just the iron, okay, showing us the heme. Heme is referring to iron. okay. Whereas other three you see the yellow color thing is given here. That yellow color thing which is on the screen inside this hemoglobin is denoting the oxygen molecule. You see that? So, it is denoting the oxygen molecule. So, we have 4 protein chains, proteins, different chains inside the hemoglobin, and we have 4 units of iron molecules, 4 units of iron, let me say like that. 4 units of iron they are present, and they are present so that they can carry oxygen, they can carry oxygen. Now, do you know how they combine this iron and oxygen? How is it combining? Any guesses? Okay, some of you are partially correct. Okay, I have to make some change. I will do it here. So, when our oxygen is trying to combine with hemoglobin, I will write here oxygen, and hemoglobin is denoted by this symbol. Okay, so I am writing it here, hemoglobin. It is combining not as a chemical reaction. So, you see here what is happening, they are combining, but they are not combining as a chemical reaction. Mind this one, that is why I am writing it there. So, if there is a chemical reaction occurring, that would lead to a process called oxidation, but here this combination what you see, it is not oxidation, it is oxygenation. I will write here, observe carefully. So, when a hemoglobin molecule combines with oxygen, it is actually the oxygenation happening, it is not oxidation. So, it is a physical process again. Oxygen is combined with the hemoglobin physically, it is not combining chemically, got it. So, that is all about hemoglobin. Now, when you see that, we are to understand about the differences between breathing and respiration. If you observe, breathing, like I said, it is a physical process which involves inhaling and exhaling. So, that is a quite simple process, followed by respiration, which is basically a chemical process. Okay. So, here in the case of breathing, you will not find any chemical reaction occurring, only there will be exchange of gases involved. Which gases are exchanged here? Okay, you are saying oxygen and carbon dioxide, that is absolutely right, but we have another way of presenting that, that is respiratory gases. So, instead of saying oxygen and carbon dioxide, you can use this word as respiratory gases. Okay. Now, breathing is a process which is a physical process. Now, it does not take place inside a cell, it takes place outside a cell. Okay. Now, here the respiration, usually the aerobic respiration takes place inside the cell, whereas anaerobic respiration takes place outside the cell. That is what we saw, right, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Finally, you see, it is in the process of respiration, ATP is generated, which is nothing but energy. Here in the process of breathing, energy is not released, right. Okay, so hope you understood the class here. So, this is the end. We would like to summarize the topics what we have dealt, starting with, we saw the source of energy and need of energy, why do we need it. We saw breathing as a physical process using various structures of the respiratory system. We explored those structures, and then we saw that we understood the route of air when it is passing through the system, and we saw mechanism of breathing, how breathing is occurring. So, what are the organs involved, how those organs are acting, we understood that, followed by respiration as most vital process and the types of respiration we did, and then compared the breathing and respiration processes. So, that was all for today's session. Hope you understood this session very well, and we will be looking forward to upcoming sessions. Thank you so much.